It is often said that humiliations never come all at once. They settle in slowly. First in the form of little comments, barbs slipped between two sentences, contemptuous silences, looks that put you down. Then one day, without even realizing it, you find yourself living with someone who treats you as if you were no longer a person, but a resource, a machine, a wallet, a useful piece of furniture. That is exactly what Ksenia had become in her husband's eyes. On December 20th, Ksenia was sitting at her work table, legs folded beneath her, shoulders heavy and eyes burning from staring at the screen. Her back had been hurting for hours, but she kept going. She had an important project to deliver before the holidays. An impatient client, a promised bonus if everything was delivered on time. She loved her job, even though her husband constantly made fun of what she did. To him, it wasn't a real job. He called it clicking buttons. Yet, this little computer game, as he called it, paid very well. Much better than he imagined. And that was precisely what he couldn't stand. When the key scraped in the lock, Ksenia immediately sensed that Vadim had come home in a bad mood. Lately, it had become a habit. He would come home tense, irritated, aggressive, as if the whole world owed him something. She quietly closed her work window, forced a smile, and said softly that she had made his dinner, his favorite meatballs, still warm on the stove. But Vadim hadn't come home to eat. He walked in, dragging his feet, threw his bag onto the couch, and looked at her with that mix of contempt and smugness that chilled her to the bone. He mocked her work again. He repeated that real men, real people worked hard out in the field, not in front of a screen. Then, without any transition, as if he had been rehearsing his speech all day, he told her that his mother had called him in tears. His sister, Alina, needed money to launch her influencer career. His mother needed dental care. And he, in his own words, was tired of seeing his wife live in comfort while his own family lacked money. What followed was so violent that Ksenia was left frozen. Vadim told her with the utmost seriousness that from now on her salary would be a family salary. Not for their home, not for their shared plans, not to secure their future, nor for his mother and his sister. He explained to her that he would take care of feeding them and paying the bills, and that she, since she worked from home, no commuting, no office lunches, no real expenses, didn't really need that much money anyway. He demanded that she give him every month what he believed to be her income. He thought she earned 100,000 rubles. He didn't know that she actually earned more than 3 times that amount. And fortunately for her, he still didn't know. Ksenia remained silent, but inside something broke. Not from shock, but from the brutal clarity of the moment. Everything became crystal clear. This man whom she had helped, supported, cared for, and covered financially without saying a word. This man for whom she had paid for medical care, bought clothes, protected his ego, had just told her without shame that he saw her as an ATM. And even worse, he thought it was normal. So she did something unexpected. She lowered her eyes, took a breath, and agreed with him. She calmly told him that he was right, that families should help each other. Vadim was not expecting that. He, who had come prepared for a conflict, a crisis, tears, suddenly found himself victorious. He changed his attitude in a second. His face lit up. He became almost affectionate. He urged Ksenia to make the transfer right away. And that's when she set her trap. She took her phone, opened her banking app, selected her husband's account, and transferred him a large sum, 200,000 rubles. In the transfer description, she wrote in black and white that it was a loan at 30% annual interest to be repaid before December 31st, and that acceptance of the funds constituted acceptance of the terms. Vadim, intoxicated by the amount, didn't even read the message properly. He only saw the figure, 200,000. His eyes immediately lit up. He asked where so much money had come from. She simply replied that she had saved it for hard times. He burst out laughing and declared that hard times could wait because it was time to celebrate. A few seconds later, he was already transferring the money to his mother, who was proud of him, convinced she had won. Ksenia, meanwhile, went to cry alone in the bathroom. Not because she doubted, not because she regretted, but because she finally understood the extent of what she had tolerated. The following days confirmed everything. Vadim strutted around the apartment as if he were the king. He spent his days on the phone with his mother, encouraging her to spend, acting like a benefactor even though the money wasn't even his. He gave orders, he made decisions, he handed things out. Ksenia was nothing more than an object in the background, useful only as long as there was something to take. On December 23rd, he even brought a colleague home without warning, just to show off. As soon as they entered, he presented the apartment as if it were his own, an apartment, however, that Ksenia had bought before their marriage. He introduced her in a humiliating way, as an unimportant woman, a wife who stayed at home, tinkered on the internet, and played with gadgets, while he, the real man, carried the household on his shoulders. His colleague even allowed himself a little mockery. Ksenia looked him straight in the eye and with a few cold, precise and relentless words made it clear to him that she handled far more serious systems than he did. She even slipped in a scathing remark about his personal financial situation, reminding him that some databases never forget debts. The man turned red, stammered, and left almost immediately. Vadim then flew into a black rage, not because she had lied, but because for a moment she had shown that she was not inferior, and that he could not tolerate. He shouted that she owed him compensation for having humiliated him in front of another man. He ordered her to find money to prepare a New Year's banquet because his mother and sister would be coming and the table had to be overflowing with dishes. Otherwise, he said, he could no longer be held responsible for his actions. This sentence, uttered almost as a threat, Ksenia tucked away somewhere deep inside herself, very calmly. On December 25th, it was Alina, the sister's, turn to make her entrance. She showed up as if she owned the place, with her ring light and her phone, determined to film videos in the apartment. She interrupted Ksenia in the middle of her work, rummaged through her things, demanded luxury products for her setup, insisted on being filmed, complained, acted coy, and behaved with unbearable arrogance. And the worst part was that she seemed convinced she was entitled to all of it. When Ksenia kicked her out that very evening, Vadim lost his temper again. He accused her of stifling his sister's talent. He demanded extra money from her to finance his future. Ksenia reminded him that she had already given him 200,000. He replied that she should just work more. And since, according to him, it was her fault his sister wasn't making progress, he even took out an additional microloan. When she saw the notification, Ksenia said nothing. She almost smiled, let him dig himself in deeper, let him keep digging. On December 27, the refrigerator was almost empty. Vadim started yelling that he wanted meat, food worthy of a man, that he needed protein. Ksenia, without looking up from her screen, replied in a calm tone that the money had probably gone into her mother's velvet sofa or her sister's ridiculous courses. If he wanted to eat like a king, he just had to go to her place. He called his mother, who asked for a few thousand rubles to fill the fridge, but she replied that they had already spent everything on a program that was supposed to make Alina a millionaire in a week. She simply recommended that he ask his wife to make do with what they had, because, according to her, a woman should know how to cook from nothing. And he came back humiliated and empty-handed. On December 30th, Ksenia wanted to try one last experiment. Not because she still had hope, but because she wanted to be sure she wouldn't regret anything. She stayed in bed that morning, pretending to be sick. She called Vadim in a weak voice, asked him to go to the pharmacy, to buy her something, anything. She made it clear that she didn't have any money on her. Vadim looked at her as if she were a logistical problem, not a suffering wife. His first reaction wasn't concern, it was annoyance. He asked who was going to clean, cook, and prepare for the guest's arrival the next day. She insisted. He went to call his mother. He came back 5 minutes later to tell her that medicine was just useless chemicals, that she should just drink tea, get up, and stop pretending. Then he literally yanked the blanket off her, ordering her to get back to work and not to forget his New Year's gift. At that moment, everything was over. Not with shouting, not with drama, but in a kind of inner silence. Something inside her was extinguished for good. Pity, hope, patience. There was nothing left to save.